Allison. I'm a literacy specialist for K-2, and I have a website called Learning at the Primary Pond. And in this video, I'm going to share with you some lesson ideas and tips for using decodable texts or phonics readers, whatever you like to call them, with kindergarten, first grade, and second grade students. And at the end here, I'm going to be doing a little giveaway. So make sure to say hi, ask a question, just interact in some way in the comments, because I'm going to scroll through at the end, and wherever my little scroller lands, that person is going to get a TPT gift card. So, all right, let's start before we dive in with some lesson ideas by just making sure that we are on the same page as far as what decodable texts are, or phonics readers, whatever you want to call them. So when I'm talking about decodable texts, what I mean are books that are specifically controlled for certain phonics patterns. So they might only have, for example, like CVC words and some high frequency words like this example does. And I'll give you like a little bit of a peek into this in a moment. They might be for a specific phonics pattern. So like you might have a book with a lot of SH digraph words when you're working on SH. So phonics readers are a little bit different from other texts like level texts because they really are very carefully controlled to just include specific types of words. And when you're using them with kids, you match your kids' abilities to the book. So like, for example, if you have not taught long vowel patterns yet, you wouldn't hand them a decodable text that has a bunch of long vowel spelling patterns. You would look for texts that allow the kids to practice what they've been taught or what they're learning, because in context practice, having kids, take what they're learning and actually apply it to real reading is really important for phonics acquisition and early reading development. Hey, is it Dahlia? Says, how can I encourage my grade 2 to write and read more? I think this will have some helpful ideas. Thanks for saying hi. If you're just joining us, don't forget to make sure to comment, say hi, ask a question, because I will be pulling a winner for a TPT gift card at the end here. All right, so this is what a decodable or phonics controlled or phonics reader is. Beneficial because they give you that in-context practice. Kids are working on CVC words, maybe they're working on short A and then they're reading them. So in-context practice, super important. Kids also feel successful because they're actually able to apply what they're learning to their real reading. And they can read this book without help, right? Or they should be able to. So let's first start by talking about when I use them. And typically decodable texts are part of my phonics instruction. You could be doing this in a whole group setting. You could also be doing it in a small group setting. I like to do them in small groups, almost kind of like a guided reading group if you're familiar with that. Hey Trisha, hi Monica. Morgan says, just purchase these decodables, excited to start them. Yay, I hope this video gives you some ideas. So in the lesson sequence, we might, for example, let me just use this one as an example. So TJ Toad in the boat. This little toad guy ends up getting in this boat, but it's made of oats, and then the boat melts. So you can probably guess that we are working on the OA spelling pattern. So I wouldn't use the book immediately after introducing OA. What I would do is introduce the spelling pattern, do some multi-sensory work. We might be like reading some words on flashcards or on the screen that have OA in them. Kids are probably going to make and write OA words. So we're going to be doing some work before we actually start using the book, because this is a little bit more challenging than just reading one word by itself. There's going to be lots of OA words, lots of great opportunities for practice, but I don't launch straight into a decodable text typically as soon as I introduce a phonics pattern. So it might be like the end of our lesson or the next lesson. It's not immediate in the sequence. So like I said, you may want to do these in a small group setting. I like to do it that way. You can do it in whole group for sure. A lot of teachers that use my phonics program from Sounds to Spelling do use them in a whole group setting, and it works just fine. However you're using them though, you're going to want to preview the text. There may be high frequency words or words that maybe were essential to writing the text that are not decodable based upon what your students know, right? Maybe you're using my phonics readers or another set, and maybe your phonics curriculum is like a little bit different as far as the scope and sequence. So you always want to preview the text asking yourself lots of things, but one thing to ask yourself is, are there any words that my students are not going to be able to decode yet? And it's not bad to have a challenge, but you might notice, hey, like, I don't know, there's no diphthongs in here, but let's just say there is a diphthong and, your kids haven't covered it. Well, they're not going to have the skills that they need to decode that word, so you can just pre-teach them that word ahead of time. Ideally, the decodable checks that you're choosing are going to be mostly decodable, meaning that your kids can read the vast majority of the words for your students, but there might be a high frequency word or something else in there that you haven't taught yet, so always preview. Beyond teaching, pre-teaching a word or two, if you have to teach any, I pretty much just kind of introduce the text. I'll choose a question to get them like talking about it, hopefully not too off topic, talking about the content of the text before. If there's any like background knowledge, for example, in my decodable text, one of them, it's not one I have here with me, but one of them mentions a well. And so kids wouldn't necessarily know what a well is. So we talk about that before they read. Again, it's not bad for kids to encounter vocabulary words that they don't know, but background knowledge is a big thing in terms of how well kids can comprehend text. And so you may have to do a little bit of that work ahead of time. With my decodable text, most of the concepts, though, are very familiar. So there's not a lot of, comprehension work that you need to do before they read. All right, so we might pre-teach a word if we need to. We might also, depending on what the kids' skills are like, look at a multisyllabic word or maybe a word with an inflectional ending. So let's just say that we're working in this OA book, and the way I handle multisyllabic words is like we start doing them in first and second grade pretty early on toward the beginning of the year, because the kids can, for example, when they're working on whatever skill, they can apply it to read multisyllabic words. So like this says oatmeal, right? The kids would already know EA, and the OA is the target pattern for the book. And so if I feel that they're going to struggle with that word, I might just write it on a whiteboard ahead of time and have them help me break it up into its syllables. But again, I don't want to remove all of the work for the kids. If I feel like, hey, like their multisyllabic word skills are strong, then I'm not going to break it up, right? I'm just going to let them handle it. But then while they're reading, I'm also watching and listening very closely, because I'm asking myself, okay, what words am I going to need to talk with them about after they read? Because if I notice that a couple of kids struggled with something, like maybe I just let them handle oatmeal by themselves. If they did struggle, then afterward, I'll write it on the board, we'll talk about it. So I'm always kind of like looking for data as they're reading. All right, so if there's any pre-teaching words, that happens. Another thing you can do is have kids find words with a specific phonics pattern before they read. And I typically only do it before they read. I almost always do it after they read, but I typically only do it before they read if I believe that they are really going to struggle with applying their knowledge. So let me give you an example. A lot of times when I introduce digraphs for the first time, at that stage of the game, kids have been doing a lot of CVC words, and they're used to reading letter by letter, right? For example, map, they read map, map. But when it comes to digraphs like SH, CH, TH, I no longer can have them reading just letter by letter. I would have to, get them looking for chunks, right? SH, TH, CH. And often when kids are making that transition from reading letter by letter to noticing chunks, it's hard for them. They're not necessarily going to immediately look for that. And you might find that for SH there, at first they're trying to sound out S, they're not seeing it, right? So when it's a pattern like that, or maybe when you're introducing vowel teams for the first time, or silent E, when it's a pattern like that and it's something that they're really not familiar with, you can have them go through the text and look specifically for that pattern. So if I was going to do it with this, I probably wouldn't do it with this skill, but they're highlighting words that have the OA ahead of time. And this is why, hard copy books are wonderful, but for decodables, I really do like having them able to write on the text, whether it's with a highlighter or a pencil. If you are using a hard copy book though, they could always just make a list on like a dry erase board or a piece of paper. So hard copy books are wonderful, but sometimes these are nice just so they can write on them. So, if we're looking for OA words, or highlighting road, trying to get them to read them ahead of time. So that way, because they're not reading yet, but that way, after they've looked through the book and found them, now I say, okay, now you're going to read. They're going to go back because they've already highlighted or underlined things. They are much more likely to notice and apply that knowledge. But again, that's not something that I do for most patterns, like those exceptions I said, SH, digraphs, maybe vowel teams, maybe silent E for the first time. Generally speaking, though, I will have the kids read, and then after we finish reading, I will have them go back and, maybe it's like just OA, or maybe it's, well, there's lots of long O spelling patterns. And I might say, okay, I want you to find 2 words that have long O spelled OW, and 2 words that have long O spelled OA. Because in the decodable books, the way that I have them set up, you will have kids looking for you will have a book that's specifically for OA, but then you'll also have a book with mixed vowel teams, because I believe that it's important for kids to encounter the pattern, yes, in a book focused on just OA, but also with other vowel teams mixed in. So you are going to see that in the bundle if you have it. I think that's important. So again, after they read, I do have them make a list or highlight or circle or underline. You can change it up too, because that just keeps it fun for the kids. Maybe use special markers or special colored pencils they can use, whatever you want to do to keep it fun. It's great because they're connecting, hey, I'm learning OA and I am reading words with OA. I feel like I've missed some questions. I'm going to scroll back up in a minute. I just want to kind of go through my lesson before I lose my train of thought. So that's what we'll typically do after they read. And then I also want to mention that you might want to have, if you use printable decodables like these, you might want to have maybe like one small group set that's color, that's, book format. And for the K-1 bundles that I have, you do get the book version. For 2nd grade, I only have passages in the interest of saving paper, saving trees. But even if you teach K-1 and you maybe have like one set of hard copy books, you may still want to have a passage version. So let me show you an example of this. This is the map with CVC words. So you might read this with the kids in small group, and maybe they don't mark on this copy, right? Like maybe this is your nice copy, your special copy, but maybe you then have them read it in a passage format, same text, just a passage format that they can write on, and this way they can write on it. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but that is one option if you want to have like a nice copy with the color images, and then if you want the kids to write on them and maybe, use them in centers and take them home, they can, and maybe you give them a 1-page passage version for that. Again, I have the matching book and 1-page options for K-1 in the bundles. The bundle link should be in this post. And then for 2nd grade, I just did passages, again, in the interest of saving trees. So speaking of rereading, having kids reread these is really important. I very rarely only have them read a decodable text or any text once, because they need to achieve that level of mastery where they feel like, hey, like I can really read this passage and I can read it well. The other thing too is, especially when kids are younger, or in the earlier stages of reading, sometimes the decoding that goes on is a little bit more laborious. I don't know if that's the right word, but it just takes them some time to get through it, right? And so we need them to feel like, hey, I'm a reader, this is easy, I can focus on the meaning of the text. And so for that reason, we might read it in small group, but I always have them read it again at least once. And you can do that in a variety of ways. One easy way to do it is just build it into your lesson. So maybe, one lesson they're reading the map, and then the next lesson you come back and you've moved on to a different pattern, but at the beginning of the lesson, you still have them reread the text from the previous lesson. So like these would not even be in sequence at all, but just using this as an example because this is what I have in front of me. Let's say that they're reading the map on Monday, and on Tuesday, they come back, they sit down at your small group table, they read the map again for fluency practice, but then your main book of the day is this. And obviously these skills would not be in sequence, but just using that as an example. Other ideas for developing fluency, because rereading is just so good for fluency, you could incorporate it into centers where there's just the rule that, if they read the book with you, then one of their center activities, maybe they have a little baggie or a folder or something, they're rereading those texts. Another fun thing to do, just to kind of motivate them to reread, you might have some system where like every time they read it, they get to like draw a check mark or they get to draw a little heart. Or maybe you have some kind of grid on a separate piece of paper or a picture, and every time they read one of their passages, one of their decodable books, they get to color in part of it. So it's like, you know, they're motivated to read more than once. They get to color in something fun. It's just helpful because rereading the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, obviously we're not gonna have them read it like 10 times, but rereading the same thing multiple times can get a little dull, especially as our kids get older. But having them color something in or just, you know, providing something fun can be really encouraging for them. So absolutely have them read it more than once. Okay, this sparked my brain with another thought. So I mentioned slightly older kids. The skills that I was showing you here, the books that I was showing you here are kindergarten and first grade, but the decodable texts are absolutely still valuable for second grade and even up, depending on the kids. And so in like second grade, I would say that we use fewer decodable texts overall in our literacy block as a whole, but I still incorporate them into my phonics instruction. And so like this skill, it's probably too small for you to see, but this skill is prefixes. And so Dante's birthday is a cute little story about how Dante like thinks his mom might be making a cake for him because it's his birthday, but then she's like, no, I'm making it for my pet fish. And there's lots of different words with prefixes in here, like misbehave, mismatched, discolored, pre-wash. So lots of fun little, or not fun little, but lots of prefixes in this fun little story. So even though the skill is a little bit harder, kids are still taking what they're learning and applying it, which is what we want. Like, we're not teaching phonics, we're not teaching prefixes and suffixes so that kids can read stuff on flashcards. Like, do I use flashcards? Yes. But the main reason we're teaching them this stuff is so that they can actually read. And so when we're using decodables, like, yes, it's about decodables or decoding the words and practicing phonics, but when we finish a text, I always have them talk about the meaning of the text. Like, that's a really important part too. This is reading. Yes, it's focusing on certain phonics things, but it's still a reading experience, right? So let's see what else. Writing. I want to talk about writing, and then pretty soon I'm going to pull my winner here. So you might have noticed if you use my decodable text that, so like if you use the book version, one thing you can do, you don't have to staple it in there. I do because I hate paperwork. But one thing you can do is you can have the kids, or you can staple the little writing prompt as the last page, and then the kids will draw a picture and write about the story. And the questions that are included there are specifically designed to hopefully getting kids using words from the text, the target words, in their answer. So like if they're working on short A, the question is designed so that they should be using at least one short A word, because again, this is application. They're learning these phonics patterns, they are applying them, right? So writing, they're just, they're getting to work on their words again. So you don't have to staple it like this, especially not if you're gonna have one nice set and then the kids have their passages. Could, use something where it's on the passage, they could write it on other paper, whatever you want to do. But the writing follow-up can be done in small group, but it can also, be done where you read them the question. I always read them the question. I don't necessarily make the questions as decodable just because, we want it to be really substantive. But I always read them the question, and then they will either answer it with me or on their own. And again, it's that in-context practice, and this time it is writing. All right, let me go ahead. I'll talk a little about the bundle, and then I'm going to scroll up and see if I miss any questions because I feel like I've missed a ton. Make sure to get your comment in though, because pretty soon I am going to be pulling that winner for the TPT gift card. I'm just going to scroll through the comments, and whoever I land on, I will let you know, and you can email me. All right, so last thing I want to share, I did put a link, I think, in this post, and that is to my decodable book bundles. So I've been getting tons of requests for these. I do have decodable text in my full phonics program from sounds to spelling, but I got a lot of requests from teachers who have to use a different phonics program, and they want a decodable text too. And I just found out today, somebody I was emailing with, she told me her school uses 2 big phonics programs, and they don't have any decodable books at all, which was really surprising to me. So anyway, Super excited about these bundles. I got them for kinder, first, or second grade. Then there's a K-2 mega bundle. They all have a big discount right now because there's something called growing bundles, which means that not all of the books are in there yet, but when you purchase now through March 15th, you get a big discount. And then as we add more books to them, as I get the illustrations back from the illustrator, I definitely did not draw these cute pictures, we will add them to the bundle. And so the bundle grows, but you don't pay anymore. You've already purchased, and then you go into your TPT My Purchases tab, and from there you can just re-download everything else. So super exciting. That is happening through Monday, March 15th, the big sale, and the price starts going up. I think that's what I wanted to mention with that. Let me go back and answer questions now. Awesome, Melanie says, just purchased the Decodable Passages books. Super, I hope this video is helpful in using them. Lori already started using them this week. Amazing, you are so welcome, Sarah. Okay, Monica's asking about B and D. Yes, I have a lot of readers who confuse them. Honestly, I think just repeated exposure is helpful, but you might have like a little strip of paper on their desk or wherever they're working that has like B, D, P, Q, and let me get my whiteboard, and that can be a good reminder for them. Another idea, I totally stole this from another teacher, that's what we're all doing, right? Just learning from each other, is to teach them that the lowercase b is hiding inside of the capital B. I know this has nothing to do with decodable books, sorry, I just want to share this. So if you have a lowercase b, you know that it's a lowercase b because you can add the other, loop or whatever you want to call it on top, and then you have the capital B. So you can have them, okay, if they're asking, is this the B? Well, add it on top. Is it the capital B? Because generally they can recognize capital B. Okay, Monica says, how long do they reread the decodable text for? Sorry, I know I'm coming to this later, much after we were talking about rereading. So I'm not sure if you mean like how many times or how long. The amount of time it takes them to reread will depend a lot on what the passage is like. The map is obviously very different than Dante's birthday. I try to make it quick if it's incorporated into a lesson. I feel like 3 times is nice for those beginning readers. As kids get older and a little more proficient, maybe 2 times. Yes, Sarah. Sarah says, do you provide any suggested questions to ask for the books? Yes, so there's probably more than you will use, but there's a lesson plan for each book. I didn't print out a copy, I don't think, sorry about that. But the lesson will give you a couple of things. The lesson plan tells you high frequency words to look for just in case you need to pre-teach them for your kiddos, because I know everybody uses like a different list. The lesson will tell you how to introduce the book. There's a question that's kind of designed to focus the kids on what it's going to be about. If there's any words that like might be tricky for the kids, it's in the lesson plan. Then you read it with them, and then there's a list of, I like to have them retell first, but then there is a list of questions to get them talking about it, because again, it's not just about decoding and phonics, it really is about gathering meaning from the text. And I know that some decodable texts are, I don't want to say meaningless, but low on meaning, but that is something that's really important to me in creating these, is that they do have meaning and they are enjoyable for kids. So that was a very long answer to your question, Sarah. Yes, there are questions to ask for the books. Sam, great question. Do you have digital copies for the virtual learners too? Yes, so they're in a PDF format because it seems like everybody's kind of using a different tool, and I don't want to mess anything up, so I won't screen share with you right now, but there is a copy that it's color, right, because you're not printing it out, but it looks like this, but it doesn't have the question, and so the text is bigger. And like, for example, the kindergarten bundle has a lot of different text, but you can get the map in one PDF. So the map is in a PDF, and each other book is in an individual PDF as well. So that way, like when I'm teaching virtually, and when I work with my students, I go to the map, I click on it, I screen share, and they're good to go. And you're welcome to share those with families via Seesaw or any other kind of tool that you need to use for virtual learning. Jill, so glad this is what you needed right now. Awesome, Emma. Minette, so level text typically refers to, like, you would have like a leveling system like Fountas and Pinnell or DRA, and those have specific characteristics. Those take into account, depending on the leveling system, it could be the content, it could be sentence length. It could be, some of it is the types of words, the phonics patterns, but these aren't really considered leveled books. They're considered decodable or phonics readers. But Manette, if you ever need help matching, like, hey, my kids are at this level, like which one should they be reading? I typically choose readers or choose text, decodable text for my students because I specifically know which phonics patterns we've been working on and what I've taught already. So that's how I choose them. But you are always welcome to message me and just say, hey, like this is about where they are. And I can probably suggest based upon the reading level that they're at, I can probably suggest which ones to start with. Hope that helps. You are welcome, Sherry. Yes, I want to do that to the From Sounds to Spelling decodables as well. So these are set up where it's so much easier this way. You print them out, right? You keep the pages one after the other. You cut it. I always do this because I have a paper cutter. You cut it and then it's just like it's 2 stacks and you stick them on top of each other and you staple. So I want to do that to the From Sounds to Spelling text as well. But yes, these should hopefully be easier to cut. Okay, Manette, great question. So just coming down to your second one, she says, should we use the level text first and then use these as a supplemental support? So Manette, I always make sure that I use decodable text like as part of the core of my phonics instruction. And so I don't know, Manette, if you have like a separate small group time and a separate phonics time. It kind of depends, right? So I do use both. I actually just did a whole webinar on that. You can message me if you want that recording for sure. You are so welcome, Allison. Scented markers are fun. Yes, I love that idea for having the kids like circle stuff, scented markers. Cindy, awesome. Cindy says, I have From Sounds to Spelling. Love the decodable books. All right, let's see what else. Sherry says it's funny how adults say the decodables are boring, but kids love them. They feel like a reader. Yes, so true. I feel like more than any other time in a reader's life and development, when they're first learning how to read like CVC words and really decode things, yes, like they desperately need that practice. They need to feel like they're readers. That's so important. And granted, there are decodables that are boring. I've talked to children who do not enjoy the ones that they have in a class or their normal classroom. So there are decodables that are boring, but that's not what I want for my kiddos. Okay, Diana says, any strategies for teaching with decodables virtually? So I touched on this a little bit, but the screen share version of these really helps because you just screen share. And then if you're able to, you can also like send copies to the kids. So you might want to like, let's say we're working on the map virtually. So I would screen share it with my kids and you might do one of a number of things. You might do a choral read first. You might just have them whisper read to themselves first. That's what I like to do. I like to have them try it out and then maybe as a group choral read. And then they also get a PDF version of it to go and read on their own as an independent activity. Gretchen says, love that you're making decodables. It also makes sense. Yes, that is very important to me as well. Okay, Marcia says, as a special education resource teacher working with struggling readers, how do I best use your books to complement the classroom teacher's program? Love that question. Okay, so Marcia, my recommendation is always to use some kind of phonics inventory or just to be aware of what your kiddos know, what they've been taught in class, if they're at the level where they are absorbing what they're taught in class. And so if you don't have like a phonics inventory or a phonics assessment, you can always go to FromSoundsToSpelling.com and click on free trial because the free trial in there does have I think it's called like a placement test or something, but there is a phonics assessment in there and it's free. You can give it to them and see like, oh, we really need to work on vowel teams. So then if you need to work on OA, then you just take out your OA reader. So, you would be choosing phonics patterns to teach based upon their needs, depending on like how long you work with them, right? If you're in more of like a situation where you're progressing through a phonics program, you can match this to the phonics program that you're using with the kids. If not, you may be choosing specific phonics patterns to teach, and you can then match the books based upon what you're working on. So do feel free to message me if you have more questions about that, but I hope that was a very small nutshell, but I hope that helps. Mim, thank you so much for sharing ideas about using virtually. Jennifer, looking forward to using sounds to spelling next year. Amazing. Okay, just scrolling down comments. I'm gonna pull a winner in a second here. Veronica says we're using decodables that are over 10 years old because our district hasn't purchased a new curriculum. Yeah, I know a lot of schools are lacking for sure. Thank you, Shantae. Sarah says my students love to take them home at the end of the week to read to their families. Yes, so good for fluency and also just developing that confidence. Emma, the decodable, so you do get books in your kindergarten literacy club, and the decodable text you would only need if you feel like you need more than what you have in from sounds to spelling, but that is totally up to you. Okay. Veronica says, I may have missed this, but how many times do you have them read a decodable? How many times overall? Do they read it over and over every day for a week? So let me try to just give some examples because it does vary. I'm going to start on the higher kids side this time. So let's say that I'm working with second graders and we read one of these decodables. I will probably just have them read it once more. That could be with me. It could be on their own. If their fluency is not high, then I will have them read it more, or if they're really struggling with it. So I don't necessarily have like a set, I mean, we do have a routine for sure, but if I notice that it's harder, then we'll spend more time on it. It also just kind of depends on what your small group situation looks like as a whole. Are you trying to get some grade level text in there as well? Some level text. So that's kind of what I do with the older kids. With little ones, we read it once in small group. And if I feel like their decoding was decent and fluency was like, okay, the next time, like I said, they'll sit down and they'll reread the text before we move on to the rest of our lesson. If they struggle a little more, I will have them read it as the main text. And by that, I mean, it's not just a quick reread, we actually spend some more time on it. And then after that, they're definitely rereading it at least once in another lesson with me, maybe twice, because I usually just have like a bin and they're pulling, so they might reread it more than once. But they will also for sure read it at least once, on their own, and that could be in centers. I don't love to rely on it as homework. I think it's great to send it home, like send home this one-page passage and have them work on it at home. But I don't rely on that because I want to see them rereading it in school where I can actually make sure that happens. I know obviously some of us are virtually teaching this year, but in general. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Emma says, did you say that decodable texts are level 2? Emma, so they don't usually have levels on them because it's just a different way of thinking about text. Many level texts are very decodable. I think about decodability as a feature of text, right? Because when you have a leveled book, it might not be called a decodable text, but hopefully many of the words are decodable for students because they include phonics patterns that they can decode. Hopefully that was not a very confusing explanation. Jenny, do you have any products for higher kindergartners? I wonder, Jenny, if the first grade bundle or if the K-2 mega bundle might be helpful because yes, you can, like the kindergarten set when it's complete is going to have, like some very, very beginning CVC word books that almost have like a pattern to them, so it's easier for them when they're first starting to learn CVC words. Got CVC words, they got digraphs, blends. I think that might be it. And then the first grade books, they're starting into more challenging blends, long vowels, stuff like that. So you might just want to look up at the next set. Thank you, Terry. Appreciate that. Oh, thank you, Lori. 3rd time this week. That's a lot of Allison. Okay, Lisa says, how many phonics skills will be in each set? Off the top of my head, that's a really good question. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I would go to that link. So it's for my TPT store, Learning at the Primary Pond. Look at whichever one you're looking at. Look at whichever preview of the resource that you're looking at, and in the preview, it'll let you download this little thing. And I have all of the different skills and the number of texts for each skill. They're all listed there. So you can see a really detailed look at what will be included when it's done. There might be a couple more bonuses that I'm going to add because I have some ideas for that. But at the bare minimum, that's what you're going to get for sure. Awesome, Emma, glad that helps. Okay, Olivia says, what was that website called for the placement test? I'm going to see if I can type it in here. It's from soundstospelling.com. decoding.com and then go to the freebie, sign up for the free trial, and then go to where it says placement test. And that can be helpful for anybody, no matter what kind of phonics program you are using. Awesome, Tiffany. I hope, yes, those A readers, I really think that is what's going to boost them for sure. Kids get stuck at level A, so I try not to leave them in there for too long. I just start lots and lots of decodable so they can really start using those phonics and decoding skills. Yes, Samantha, there should be a link to the bundle. I don't want to navigate away and mess anything up here, but it's my TPT store, Learning at the Primary Pond. It should be somewhere in this post. You are so welcome, Stephanie Ann. Thank you. Miracle says, suggestions for students who decode and sound out every word when reading. Yes, I feel you on that. The fluency will help a lot. So I have a little one in particular, so proud of her. She is finally getting to a point this year where after lots of like laborious decoding of words, she is recognizing things more quickly. And honestly, I think it's just repetition. Having her read a lot of decodable text, read as much as possible, volume read, right? I really just feel like it's that repetition and fluency, and rereading truly can make a difference. So Miracle, maybe try, if you're already having your kids reread their stories or their texts a lot, maybe try adding another reread to it, because that can absolutely help. Gracie, what is your bundle called? I think it's K-2 decodable text mega bundle, maybe? But go to Learning at the Primary Pond TPT store, and if you go to like most recent, or you scroll for the category and look for decodable books, afterwards I can always put the little link here, but it should be somewhere in this post. Thank you, Kelly. You're so sweet. Okay, Melanie says, is that pretest more reading or spelling to identify their phonics need? That one is spelling. So kids, I need to pull my winner soon. I was like, this isn't going to be very long. Talk. Good question, Melanie. So that particular assessment is for spelling. Kids can often decode phonics patterns or decode certain, spelling chunks before they can encode them, before they can spell them. That is very normal. So like if we are doing OA, my kids may have already learned how to decode OA because maybe we're reading another text, like a leveled book or whatever, and I notice it and I'm like, hey, like you're going to need this pattern to read it. So they might already know it. By the time we're using the decodable text, typically that's when we're learning to spell the words as well. So Melanie, long answer to your question, that particular free pretest is more spelling. If you want something that's more like reading, nonsense word assessments are really good. I do have that in my 1st and 2nd grade literacy club, but a nonsense word assessment would help you know which phonics pattern they can read. And then the spelling assessment that I have for free will help you know which phonics patterns they can encode or spell. Okay, Mim says, will one of your texts have multiple alternative spellings for a phoneme? Will they have AI, AY, EY? I don't think so, but A, consonant E in the same text? Yes, I am 99% sure. If they don't, I will add them, but yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. So like if it's OA, you might have the OA book, but then you have like a mix of vowel teams, in a different book. So yes, definitely. All right, you all. Well, I'm going to go ahead and pull my winner. Thanks so much for all the awesome questions. Appreciate you hanging out. I'm just going to scroll randomly, and then whoever I land on, I'll announce, and then you can email me or Facebook message me, and we will send you the TPT code. All right, scrolling. My winner is Lori Madsen. Lori, I would love for you to message me. Hopefully you're still watching, and I would love to send you a TPT gift card. All right, so let me see I see some other questions. If you need to go, thanks for being here. Hope this was helpful. Don't forget that the growing bundle sale special thing is that the big discount is going to be over Monday, March 15th. So they'll still be available after that, but the big discount that I decided to do with the release is going to be over after Monday, March 15th. So that's, I don't know, 5 days from now, 4 days from now, as the time that I'm recording this, depending when you're watching it. So just make sure you grab them before then if you need those, and the link should be in this post. And I'm going to see what other questions I have missed. Jennifer, 1st and 2nd grade literacy club. Yeah, so that's a membership that I have. I do ongoing professional development and My members get monthly materials. We open the club in January and July. It's first and second grade literacyclub.com if you want to get on the wait list. But that's it's just it's different. It's not my TPT store. It's like a community. We have a community of kindergarten teachers, kindergarten literacy club. We have a community of first and second grade teachers. All right, Emma says, I have a group of SK students who are at GRA level of 3, so I think it will be good to boost their reading with more decodable text, as high frequency words are also included with word family patterns, digraphs, and vowel teams, as you mentioned. Yes, I think that will definitely boost them for sure. And I think too, Emma, you'll see that as they are reading more decodable text, it might not be immediate, but you will also find that they can read leveled text more easily too, because again, leveled text should be at least somewhat decodable for kids. Yay, Lori, so glad you were here and saw this. Yes, Jackie, hopefully this is saving. After I'm done, it should save to my page. No worries at all, and you can hopefully watch it later. All right, I think I got everybody's questions. However, if you have questions later, feel free to come back, put them in here. I'll get to them, or you can message me. If you have any questions about the bundle, or if they might be right for your specific situation, feel free to ask too. Otherwise, that discount is on through Monday, March 15th. Thanks so much for watching, and let me know if you think of any questions later.